Hi everybody, Dan Oman here with some exciting news. DRF Formulator, the gold standard in past performance information, is now free, exclusively on DRF Bets. Join DRF Bets with the promo code WINNING, get a $250 first deposit match bonus, a $10 free bet, and free Formulator already uploaded to your account. Access Formulator's premium features, including sortable trainer stats, race replays, personalized trip notes, and lots more. Free Formulator, exclusively on DRF Bets.
Hi everyone, I'm David Aragona, and this is the April 13th edition of Horses to Watch, where we carefully analyze trips from the past week, looking for horses that might have encountered adversity and could be worth betting back when they run back in the future. It recently was the opening week at Keeneland this past week, and we've got a few replays to talk about from Keeneland, 4 in total on this episode, 1 from Aqueduct as well, in addition to those trio of Keeneland replays. We're going to start off with 2 races from the Friday card, April 8th at Keeneland, beginning with one of the stakes races, Race 7, the Lafayette Stakes for 3-year-olds on the main track. Let's break these runners from the gate. For 2, Money Supply. In this large field, you can see him breaking a little bit slowly in those white and red Klarovich stable silks towards the inside. You're going to see him, as they come out of the chute, get a little bit rank. He's kind of throwing his head up in the air, striding high, just a horse that's climbing a little bit on the backstretch. It seems like he's just a little bit green and reacting badly to the kickback in front of him. This was just the second start of Money Supply's career. He had won his debut at Tampa Bay Downs in pretty fast time. Took some support in this stakes race, despite it being just his second career start. But you can see the trip just doesn't really work out for this horse. As they're moving down the backstretch, this is a large field of runners, but it's pretty compact. And that indicates that the pace is not that quickly. And the leader of this race is actually going to be the horse that wires this field on the front end and eventually wins, setting what turned out to be some moderate to slow fractions. If you look at the Timeform US pace figures for this race, a couple of them are color-coded in blue, indicating this was a race that favored horses towards the front end. And you can see Money Supply now trying to swing to the outside. Jose Ortiz is asking him for a little bit of run, but you could see he's just covered in dirt. He's just really caked with all that kickback that he took on the backstretch. And he's going to go off the screen here for a little bit, but he had a lot of ground to make up by the time they got to the quarter pole. And as you can see from the top 2 runners, the number 3 and number 4, they were the leaders early, and they're going to be the first 2 finishers across the wire. But do note that Money Supply does pass over half the field in the stretch. You're going to see him cross the wire in 5th place, far back from the early leader, but he did do some running in the stretch of this race. And given that greenish he showed on the backstretch, the fact that he took all that kickback and was against a slow pace, I think he's a horse that you do want to give a second chance to next time out. We'll see if he ultimately turns out to be a graded stakes type. He earned that kind of speed figure in his debut, but he's going to have to do better against stakes competition in his next start. I think he's going to be able to if he gets some pace to close into. Let's take a look at the very next race from Keeneland on Friday, April 8th. This is race 8, another stakes event, the Grade 3 Transylvania, going 1 mile and a 16th on the turf course, once again for the 3-year-old males. Let's break these races from the gate. It's just a field of 6 this time, and we're going to focus on another Chad Brown trainee, the number 2, Napoleonic War. There he is in those green Peter Brandt silks, breaking just to the outside of the rail runner, who's going to go on to set the lead. And you're going to see the number 2 Napoleonic War's rider, Flavien Prat, just try to situate him in the pocket behind those 2 early leaders. And typically in a turf race, that's exactly where you want to be. But kind of like with Money Supply, the horse we just talked about, this was just the second start of Napoleonic War's career. He had won his debut easily at Tampa, or I should say in a dead heat at Tampa against a weaker field. But he was stepping right up into stakes company here, and you can see he's just a little bit rank heading onto the backstretch. He's trying to run up on the heels of that horse in front of him, the number 1. That horse is just a little bit off the rail, and all the way down the backstretch and into the far turn, you can kind of see Napoleonic War trying to seize that rail position and run up inside of that horse, and Flavien Prat just has to keep tapping on the brakes to make sure he doesn't do that, to try to keep him in that pocket. So it's a little bit of a seesaw trip for the rider down the backstretch. Again, he's not fighting the rider so badly that he's all the way back in the stirrups, but just having to give this horse some cues to hold his position where he is. And as they come around the far turn, you're going to notice the horse on the lead, the number 1, starts to tire. He's going to back up a little bit. Horses to the outside starts to range up. And as that number 1 fades, you're going to notice the number 2 Napoleonic War just gets shuffled back all the way to last by the time to get to the top of the stretch. And whereas other horses are starting to make their moves at this point, Flavien Prat had to grab this horse to steady behind the number 1. He's last at the quarter pole, and he's going to try to make up some ground here, but this is not a race that featured a particularly fast pace. Rather, it was really on the slow side, so there's not a whole lot of ground being made up through the stretch of this race. The eventual winner, Side Dog, had already gotten into top gear by the time they got to the 3/16 pole, and Napoleonic War now trying to gain momentum in the final eighth of a mile. He's hits his best stride in the very late stages, but he just was left with too much to do. He's going to just miss third to get up for fourth in this race, but I think he ran better than that finishing position would indicate, and I do believe this is a horse that has some real upside. A Son of Warfront, who, as I said, won his debut in a dead heat first time out, but did so again closing into a very slow pace at Tampa Bay Downs. That was a race that got a pretty low speed figure, but I think the bettors that Keeneland realized was better than that figure indicated, as he did take some money in this Transylvania Stakes. I believe he can do even better than this, and he might be the horse that you want down the line coming out of this race in the future. Let's move on to Saturday. We're going to talk about another race from Keeneland. This was the second race on April 9th, a maiden special weight event going 7 furlongs for the 3-year-olds on the sloppy dirt track, as they did get plenty of rain prior to this card at Keeneland. Let's break these runners from the gate, and we're going to focus on the number 10, Jeeper. And as the horses break out of the gate, notice Jeeper is that chestnut horse in the Calumet Silks, about 2 or 3 runners from the outside. You could just see him as they came out of the gate, that chestnut horse with the white blaze, and watch those black silks as he gets steadied pretty badly. There he is highlighted right there coming out of the chute. He actually broke with the leaders, had forward position, but just gets totally sawed off in traffic as they come out of the chute. And he's going to steady, and in the blink of an eye, he goes from contesting the pace to be all the way back in last as they move down the backstretch. And that's really not where you want to be, especially over a wet track where you have to take a lot of that sloppy kickback. It's just difficult for a young and experienced horse to have that trouble and get shuffled all the way back to last in a 12-horse field. And what he's going to have to do, his rider, James Graham, is just going to have to try to circle the entire field. And in doing so, he's going to have to cover a lot of ground around the outside on the far turn. But this horse actually handles the situation pretty well, and you can see him moving from the back of the pack. He's passed a couple of horses now. You could see him just kind of rocketing past those tiring runners on the outside. We're going to highlight him right here as they come to the top of the stretch. There he is looping into the stretch widest of all, but he's continuing to pass horses quickly. He's going to get up into third place. You'll see him flatten out a little bit as they come onto the wire, but I think he had a right to get a little bit tired at the end of this race, given the trouble that he had coming out of the chute and the fact that he made up all of that ground while going widest of all on the far turn. I think he actually runs pretty well to finish third in this race, a race that did come up reasonably fast for a maiden event in the spring for 3-year-olds. This runner is trained by Keith DeSormo, as I said, for Calumet Farm. This was the third start of his career, so he has some experience, but his 2 prior races came at the end of his 2-year-old season. He last raced towards the end of December 2021, so he was coming back off about a 3.5-month layoff here, and I think this is a horse that you're going to see take a step forward having this race under his belt, especially if he can show some of that tactical speed that he wanted to flash in this race, but just wasn't able to because of that early trouble. So one that I would definitely look for when racing switches to Churchill Downs pretty soon towards the end of this month. Let's switch gears and end the show by taking a trip over to Aqueduct to discuss one race from their Saturday, April 9th card. It was actually the first race of the day that I want to discuss, a maiden special weight event going 6 furlongs on the turf for 3 and up fillies and mares. Let's break these runners from the gate. I'm going to focus on the gray horse, the number 8, Snow Loves a Fight. You can see right in the center of the screen there in those sort of lime green silks with the pink saddle towel. Now, she breaks in mid-pack of this race, but her rider, Kendrick Carmouche, for whatever reason, is really not interested in this horse showing any tactical speed whatsoever. And you can see him kind of rocking back and forth, even leaning back in the stirrups, trying to get this horse farther and farther off the pace. I'm not really sure why, because this was a race that actually gets dominated towards the front end. You could see the opening quarter goes up in 22-1, which might seem fast, but if you watch a lot of the turf races on this Saturday card at Aqueduct, there was some give in the ground, and you really did not see that much closing going on from the back of the pack. So there you see the number 8, Snow Loves a Fight, second to last now, that gray horse. She's never on the inside. She's in the 2 to 3 path throughout, and as she tries to make up ground here, watch what happens. The runner just to her inside is going to veer out into her path right about here, and she's going to get steady. You can kind of see it happen right on the left of your screen. She had to check in behind that horse and was basically cost all of her momentum just as Kendrick Carmouche was trying to launch a rally with her. And as I said, you could see this race was dominated towards the front end by the number 6, the horse that set that fast opening fraction. She goes on to a clear victory. But check out Snow Loves to Fight across the wire. She actually passes a lot of horses to get up for fourth there. That gray horse passing about 7 runners in the stretch to get up to complete the superfecta in this race. This was the first turf start for this Orlando Noda trainee by a sire, Rainbow Air, who I have not seen get a lot of opportunities, but Rainbow Air was a turf sprinter during his career, and there is pedigree on the bottom side. So it seemed like this filly that hadn't shown a whole lot on dirt might have really taken a step forward on the turf, and her finishing position might not really indicate to future bettors how well she ran in this race, because she just kind of had those curious tactics in the early going and that steady at the top of the stretch. The way the turf was playing, favoring speed a little bit. I just think she had multiple factors working against her in this turf debut, and I think Snow Loves a Fight is the horse that the kind of horse that could do a lot better when she gets on turf for the second time, likely at the Belmont Park meet in May. So those are all the horses to watch for this week. If you want to follow these horses or any others that caught your eye from the past week, you can add them to your horse watch on DRF.com. Just add these horses to a list and you'll get email notifications when they run back in the future. Thanks for listening this week, and make sure to tune into future episodes of Horses to Watch on upcoming Wednesdays.